Mr. Kennedy?
Kennedy.
Yes.
Richard Kennedy. I was a CI economic analyst for 31 years, for which I was awarded the agency's Career Intelligence Medal. I thank you for the opportunity to testify, as I did for the medical marijuana bill 4 years ago. The good judge said this bill is premature. I say it's 40 years overdue. For the record, I've never tried marijuana. I don't use alcohol, but I got interested in the issue in grad school. It was clear 40 years ago that marijuana prohibition is a worse failure than alcohol prohibition because pot is much safer than alcohol. By 1972, we had Marijuana, the New Prohibition by Stanford law professor John Kaplan. We had Marijuana Reconsidered by Harvard Medical School professor Lester Grinspoon. We had Marijuana, a Signal of Misunderstanding by the National Commission on Marijuana. And we had Licit and Illicit Drugs by Consumers Union, which simply recommended that all the federal laws on marijuana be repealed and leave it up to the states. What have we learned since 1972? Well, most of the fears about marijuana have been disproved. It's not a gateway drug. Even heavy smokers do not get lung cancer. Alcohol and tobacco are worse than we knew back then. This year, 480,000 people will die from tobacco, 88,000 from alcohol. The number of marijuana deaths is so small, we can't detect it in medical studies. Alcohol and tobacco cause cardiovascular disease and a long list of cancers. Marijuana causes, quote, bronchitis, wheezing, coughing, and increased phlegm, unquote, according to the Merck Pharmaceutical Company. Tobacco is so toxic that 42,000 people will die from secondhand smoke this year. Alcohol doubles the chance of a driver's risk of a fatal accident well before the DUI limit of 0.08 is reached. We now know that the share of users who become dependent is 32% for nicotine, 15% for alcohol, only 9% for marijuana. We've learned a lot more about marijuana's medical uses. At the 2010 Council hearing, Dr. Vigilance, who was the DOH head at the time, testified about the conditions for which we know marijuana is useful and those conditions for which it probably is, but we're not certain yet. And tragically, we have learned that marijuana laws have become part of the new Jim Crow. Last year, there were 750,000 marijuana arrests in the US, and a black user is 3.7 times as likely nationwide to be arrested as a white user. This strikes home to me because I was a civil rights worker in Mississippi in 1964, and it is tragic to see some of the gains of the civil rights movement being undone by the way the drug laws are enforced. Marijuana is not harmless. It does impair driving, but much less than alcohol. Kids shouldn't be using it, but prohibition isn't keeping it away from them. In fact, 2 daughters who graduated from college recently, I can attest to that. And as a DEA judge concluded in 1988, marijuana is far safer than many foods that we commonly consume. Future historians are going to spend a lot of time pondering how such a misguided policy could have persisted for so long in the face of so much contrary evidence. DC now has a chance to get on the right side of history and help lead the country toward more sensible drug policies. Go for it. And thank you very much. And I've attached to my testimony some key findings of other reports on marijuana, some charts that show teen use and how our laws are not keeping it away from teens. So I just suggest you look at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Okay, folks, there's no demonstration in the council chamber. Thank you. Now we'll very much for your testimony, sir.
Hello, my name is Andy Ludwig, and this is my daughter Leah, who wishes her daddy could spend all day with her like today, but most of my waking hours are spent at work in the district, which makes me a suitable person to address the council today. Leah is 4 months old, which is about the age where many health issues tend to present themselves in infants. Thankfully, Leah has been healthy so far, but thousands of infants like her develop seizures. There is nothing more heartbreaking than watching a tiny child have a seizure. for some dozen times a day. And thousands of parents have realized that cannabis is the best aid in helping treat their children's seizures. But I'm not here to make the case for medical cannabis to you. Anyone with half a brain can see how it helps so many patients with so many conditions, at least 20 according to the scientific literature. And you may ask, how can cannabis help with so many different conditions? The answer is that it works with your endocannabinoid system to help regulate the various systems in your body and return them to a normal state. So you can imagine how it could help address a rogue replicating cell you'd find with cancer, or a number of immune system related diseases like Lou Gehrig's or AIDS. But what I'm really here to convey is how that same attribute can help everyone. So let me ask you, have you ever had a traumatic event in your life? Something happened you'd really rather not remember. Unless you're incredibly fortunate, you've had something pretty awful happen to you or a family member, and you kept playing it in your mind wondering, what if? Or while the memory continued to stress you as you struggled to let it go. Sometimes short-term memory can be a curse. And this is where cannabis comes in, to help you forget about something, to let go, to relax. That can be amazingly therapeutic to people who have PTSD, as well as those who are simply stressed by a 4-hour council meeting. In addition to helping you relax, move on, and return your body to a more normal state, cannabis can also bring along some laughter. And as we all know, laughter is the best medicine. If you ask me, this medicine should be as widely available as aspirin or ibuprofen, and that starts with your work here today. So I want to say thank you for starting down this path to legalize and sell cannabis. I urge you to have the courage and common sense to continue down this path, pushing ahead with as much haste as you would for treating an infant that's having a seizure. Please don't let this process get delayed. So many people will benefit dearly from access to this wonderful flower. After all, there's a very good reason why so many people are moving to Colorado. Let's keep people in DC. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ma'am,
Good afternoon.
afternoon.
I'm Dr. Lonre Falus.